That forever pause that happens right before the show. I'm gonna have to talk to John about that gap in that video because it kills me every time. I'm like, it's like that moment where you're waiting for the person to give the answer on like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or whatever, and like,
Right.
is that your final answer? And then you have to wait for like, well, an eternity basically before you find out. So hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wednesday Night Live Show. And you might be saying to yourself right now, where in Sam Hell is John Truncali, the show host, the creator of this whole entire shebang? I regret to inform everybody that while he is awake, yes, he is awake. He's not sleeping through his alarms. We just spoke to him, and he doesn't have internet for the current moment. Yes, Curtis. Both of those comments are true. But yeah, so we're going to hope and pray. He's been told that Xfinity is working on the issue, but that is the canned response from every cable company when when you want to know when you want to know how long it's going to be before your internet comes back online. So here we are, and we have our wonderful guest Jeff Berry back in the house. Jeff had to leave us a little early last show. If you remember, he was down to like 1%, and we were going to lose him anyway. So welcome back to the show, Jeff. So we'll go around the horn here with just the two of us. We're hoping that Phillip makes it here tonight. So let's just check on everybody's, see how their week has been going, see how life has been treating them. Hopefully no hurricanes in anybody's near future. But Michelle, how has your week been?
Oh, it's been going, trying to get ready for the storm. But it's not going to hit me directly, I don't believe. So we're hoping.
Yeah.
I mean, neighbors, checking on the neighbors the whole bit, getting the water, getting the food, just all that extra stuff, the gas. In fact, I went to 4 different places yesterday before I could find gas. And all I needed was a half a tank. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, people were really scared for a while because they were saying it was going to hit me directly. And then it moved.
Isn't that the case though? It's like when you know it's coming for you, it moves, and then the people that it wasn't supposed to hit,
right.
they're over there like scrambling for bread and milk right now and trying to find the gas. So
right,
yeah,
exactly.
Well, all things considered, I hope that you aren't affected by the hurricane. And we've already had our side conversation about generators, so we know how much people down there in Florida love generators. And Mr. Jeff Berry, how has your week been going?
Actually, it's gone pretty well. Done a lot of improvements at the shop here. Ironically, we are directly in the path, northern side of it, to Tennessee, but we're ground zero as it comes into Tennessee.
Really? So it's headed straight for you. Yeah, I'm a little weary myself. I've been so ignorant to hurricanes this year. Like normally Atlanta doesn't get them. If we get anything, we just get
coming right up to Atlanta, right Chattanooga, right up 75.
All right. Well, I just hope and pray that my tree outside's still standing when all this is said and done. But we'll find out. No, I lost part of it in a strong storm about a year ago, and now it's just sort of like it's got this one big piece at the top that's kind of hanging on for dear life. So we'll see if in fact it makes. I heard it's like cranking 80-mile-an-hour winds right now. Consistently. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Good time.
Exactly.
But that's early too. It's still way down by Cancun, so it's got a lot of hot water to go over.
Well, they're saying right now it's classified as a Category 1, where I don't know if that offers any solace, but they're saying that by the time it meets landfall in Florida, it could be a 3.
3 or a 4 is what I keep hearing.
All right. Well, let's just hope that they're getting it wrong, and like it'll be like all the weather newscasters up in the Northern Virginia area. They always tell you snow's coming. and then the snow never comes. So I'll pray for that. So how has my week been? Can I top any of that? Well, let's see. So on Thursday last week, we went to a concert. We went to the Mike Tramp concert. So if any of you old metalheads out there remember the band White Lion from the late 80s, going into the early 90s, Mike Tramp is on tour right now. Songs of White Lion. So White Lion will never get back together, but Mike Tramp's still going strong. And we went and saw him over at Mad Life. And then on Saturday, we went to my friend's birthday party, his 50th birthday party. My friend Chris was celebrating, and the party invite, it said that it was an Oktoberfest theme, and that they encouraged people to wear lederhosen, the guys, and then the drindles for the girls. And I just decided that clashed with my style. I just didn't think that I'd look good in lederhosen, so I got on.
You just need rock boots. That's all you needed.
That's true.
And rock boots. Hey.
Did you just go bareback with just a tunic?
Yes, basically that's what I did. No, I got on Amazon and I found a T-shirt that said in kind of in light German. I wish I had it here. I could show everybody. It said "Mein Lederhosen is in der Wasch." So basically, it said my lederhosen is in the wash. So it was just, so I wore a T-shirt and shorts, and I didn't feel too out of place. I wasn't the only one that didn't get all gussied up, but a bunch of the dudes did. So it was kind of fun. So that was a good little party. Won a round of beer pong. So I'm pretty proud of it. Huh?
How'd you do with the beer pong?
How did I? Well, it was down to 1 cup each, and I snuck it in at the last moment. So it was a comeback. Actually, we were down 3-1, and I thought it was all over, and we just had like a mad comeback. It was like like playing professional beer pong under pressure. I should have been paid multi-millions of dollars per year to come back and win that game. So that was fun. And beyond that, that's it. I had a dentist appointment today, and who the hell likes the dentist? So we won't talk about that.
Is there actual professional beer pong?
You know what? Somewhere probably there is. And after breakdancing entered the Olympics last year, it would be a refreshing change if beer pong made it into the Olympics and became a professional sport. Philip, do you concur?
Beer pong, Olympic sports, I would gold medal. So therefore, I do concur.
Yeah.
Silver, maybe. Actually, there are a couple. There are a couple of Schlitz guys I know that might be competition. Other than that, absolutely beer pong.
What do you think? What do you think about if they made it into like a combination, like a decathlon, like a triathlon event, and they combined breakdancing and beer pong? Would you compete then, Philip?
We would have to. We would have to compensate, or rather, age brackets would need to be. We would have to have a gold medal for different age brackets. For example, when I was 22 years old, your ass was mine. That said, I'll be 50. I'll be 50 in 2 weeks. So I would have to compete in the 20 to 30-year-old bracket.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they would be unfair. They would feel like that was unfair competition just because you're experienced.
No, they would think it's unfair competition because I'm Jewish.
Oh, okay.
Here's the thing.
Your face is like a bunch of goy. I'm like,
go ahead, Jeff.
If you're going to be if beer pong's going to be in the Olympics, you'd have to actually. The time would have to be actually cut short because beer pong can go on for a while.
It can, yes.
So I propose it would be like Jack Pong.
Jack Pong?
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, yes, beer pong matches can go on like cricket matches. They can be like all night long, and to determine a winner. So I agree. We need some parameters.
Yeah, Jack Pong would end it quickly.
That's
if
true.
if I tell you that I'm still in the middle of a mail-in chess game with my pledge son who lives in Newport, California, would you all laugh at me and make fun? Yes, you would. So I'm not going to say that takes a while.
I was going to say mail-in.
Yes, each move is mailed to the opponent, and the opponent makes the next move, and it's mailed back. It's not exactly what we would call state of the art, but there is an element of suspense to it. I am, of course, getting very close to having that special move. I'm not going to reveal it yet. He might be watching.
Okay, well,
No,
yeah,
he's
let's not reveal your hand. I was going to say, but you say mail in. Do you mean like
yes, we have a chessboard. Okay, print out chessboard.
Yes.
Everything is kept track of. Each move that you make, you counter. It's been going on for a few months now.
Okay.
Each counter move is mailed, not faxed, not emailed, mailed. U.S. Postal from California to Birmingham, Alabama. So you have quite a bit of time to overthink your strategy. And I love chess. The only reason I can play a game of chess or know what the pieces are called is because I had this tiny little chess computer when I was a kid called Ivan the Conqueror. And this thing would make little sounds when you made a bonehead move. It would rip you up. It would demoralize you and call you names, and it would bring me to tears. So I didn't want to feel like like I was deficient anymore. So I had to learn. Even then, it continued to scold me like a redheaded stepkid. What I'm trying to say is I was in no position to be, I would not be poked fun at by a, I don't know, Commodore 364 level chess computer. No, sir. So I had to learn how to play chess.
Well, very good, because if that machine made me feel dumb, I'm already dumb at chess, so it wouldn't have hurt my feelings one bit. So real quickly, Philip, how has your week been? We've gone around the horn.
I have to ask something. Tim, are you now married? Okay, I am so proud of you. I'm so happy for you and the adorable couple. I saw the pictures. I don't do Facebook much because howling at your neighbor about your political grievances is just stupid. Anyhow, my point is, what a beautiful thing. And I'm so happy for you. And you're such a wonderful, kind human being. The evidence being that you tolerate me on this show. And I just wanted to say mazel tov and many years of happiness.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Both very happy. Excited for the future.
I have 23 years of servitude.
You have 23 years of service. I have 2 divorces in my wake, so I don't know.
Jeff, you are a legend. It's good to see you. How are you? It's been a while.
So is that all you've done all week? Is mail in chess and smile about my
brother?
wedding?
I really wish I could say that was all I've done this week.
I'm sure it's been full. We're aware why you weren't here last week. You were doing good deeds, and that's
that was actually something that I can't believe I screwed. It's a yearly thing, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. It's just the unhoused shelter here in town. It's called the Firehouse. It's done a lot of really good things for people who are simply exceptional people who are simply down on their luck, having a rough time. It happens, and it's an amazing place that is thankfully somewhat funded, and we could always never say no to additional resources, but it's the sort of place that helps people who are simply in a transitional phase, having some difficult times, as opposed to your typical shelter where it's sort of a revolving door. And I'm very proud to say that it's successful. The fact that I wasn't able to keep the date right on my little on Mr. Pixel, well, I really just don't have an answer for that. Flog me if you must.
Well, that's good. So let's say hey to everybody here in the chat real quick, and then I thought, well, we touched base again with Jeff, because Jeff was on the show with us, and unfortunately his time got cut short due to battery. He had a long drive, 11 hours in transit. So we'll catch back up with Jeff here and remind everybody who Jeff is, and then we'll talk about the opinion piece. We'll talk about a tweet that went out this past week.
I didn't do this, did I? Okay.
No, it wasn't your tweet, Philip. No, exactly, because most of your tweets are just
Damn it, I'm
sort of
feeling like I'm gonna get ambushed here.
no. Most of your tweets, Philip, are usually you defending why you got blocked.
That's not true at all. I don't defend why I know why I got blocked.
I know.
Because they were rude.
They were very rude. All right, so let's scroll up to the top. I'm not even going to play the music. We got 8 people in the house, and I think they're all in the chat right now. So, hey, everybody. And I've already said it once. I'm going to say it twice. Welcome to this week's edition of the Wednesday Night Late Live Show. We got all of our wonderful viewers in here. So, and I just want everyone to know, never fear, because Mallory Gates is here. So she made that perfectly clear when she stepped into the chat. Mallory Gates, great to see you, and thank you for washing all of our fears away. Steve Todnam, who was here in the chat with us, he was beginning to worry. So, you know, see, all of everyone's worries were put to rest. I magically, Mallory was able to scare off the monster that was underneath my bed. So absolutely, we love when Mallory is here on the show. Steve, Emoji King Todnam, great to see you. How are you, sir? We got the Rolling R Rifleman in the house. Great to see you, Mr. Rifleman. How are you? We got our resident pirate, James R, in the house. And then, oh, hell, he fucking made it. Here he is, everybody. Curtis Clemens. You know, he said it. Well, actually, I kind of read it backwards. He goes, oh, hell. Oh, I made it. Fuck the FDA. So
I made it. Well, that has a ring to it, doesn't it?
I said both statements are absolutely true. We got Don Shirako Ayako in the house with the horns up for White Lion. Yes, they were one of the better bands back in that day. Probably an under.
Your butt looks good in like hair metal pants, I have to say, brother. I mean, you got that going on, dude.
Well, that's because I don't have a butt anymore, Philip. I lost it about 10 years ago, and I've been looking for it ever since. And somehow the stretch pants somehow do a little bit of justice. So don't worry, everybody. It's not spandex. I don't look like Steel Panther. I don't look like Steel Panther out there. No, they're jeans.
I had to get my license renewed, and they asked me my weight. My last time they had the weight at 160. I'm like, it's not that anymore, was my answer. I have nothing more to say.
Don, I look, I think I shared your sentiment after the first one myself. And then I think what I just started to really realize was that it was just poor choice in particular people. So that's who we got in here. We got 7 of you in here. Anybody else wants to jump in and chime in, feel free. Let's loop back around. Let's remind everybody in the chat. Jeff Berry, shop owner, juice maker. Jeff has bounced around. He's Pennsylvania, he's Tennessee, he's New York. He's all over the place. But he's a shop owner. Jeff, can you give us a little bit of your backstory just so everybody understands who you are, where you came from, what got you into the industry, and all that good jazz?
So basically, I started in 2009. I discovered a generic ego twist with a Cardo cherry bubblegum, 24 milligrams. Had some employees wondering what I was doing. Sold to my employees at my previous business. Ended up being one of the guys carrying a tackle box around selling generic ego pens and C3s and 5 ml bottles of juice to my friends and family. Ended up into the shop in 2010. Lots of laws and bans and flavor bans and taxes, and I'm not a tax collector, and basically ended up in Tennessee.
You opened your shop in 2010?
In New York, yes, sir.
Wow, that is amazing. Bravo. Those were the pioneer, the true the entrepreneurial days, and that was when I was able to find someone who believed that there was anything that could be done for my smoking habit, and it was all Alien Visions, Boba's Bounty, and let me see, really finicky ego teas, the Conatties. But let's just say bravo for getting in there and knowing what.
Buying from China, buying $30,000-$40,000 pieces of $30,000 or $40,000 worth of product, and from a guy with a Chinese accent named Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And,
That moments that one looks back on either with amazing astonishment or just, well, hopefully one's still around to look back on that with regret. But my friend Wes McDonald, who was the brains behind what became Vulcan Vape here in Alabama, which I have to say was pretty early on in there on the whole shop and then distribution level. He before there was ever a shop, he would literally do house calls with a metal briefcase that was filled to the brim with just about everything and anything you want and things you absolutely did not. So when I found something, Boba's 24 was my preferred. Trust me, we had the 36 milligram red label tobacco from Totally Wicked. Love the guys at Totally Wicked. That stuff, I mean, good Lord. I mean, choke a sewer rat. Anyway, the point being is thank you very much for knowing what it was and letting the rest of us know. So it was those were some, God, it was, people say Wild West now. They have no idea, right?
it was, I remember people coming, they'd call me going, hey, I'm out of, my 5 ml bottle of juice. And literally they're 20 miles away there. Can you come see me? I was like, dude, really? Like 8 o'clock at night and they're like out of e-liquid. I was like, they're like, oh, wouldn't this be great? I remember they're like, wouldn't this be great if this was in every gas station?
My Wes came to my father's house one afternoon where I said, listen, I don't know what to do. Remember when they took Alien Visions off the market? They decided to go direct only. They weren't going to be selling to, they weren't going to be distributing anymore. Anyhow, I must have tried, I don't know, 50 different brands of just god awful e-liquid. I had a vomit bucket. This was like some real Monty Python moments. Yeah. Anyhow, yeah, everything from Red Pirate to Kathmandu, every disgusting thing you could ever imagine, just trying to find something that was vapable, and there was nothing.
There was times I made at one point, 2010, 2011. There was a flavoring out there called Liquid Smoke, and I actually made pizza flavored. I made smoke. I actually made a pulled pork flavor, brisket flavor.
You're not from New York, brother. Where are you originally from?
No. This was people that are, can you make bacon? I made a bacon flavor.
Oh, did you?
Man, that would probably be let's just say if somebody wants to vape a meat product, that's number one on the list.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Back bacon in Canada, same thing.
It was really disgusting, actually.
I believe that.
But if you could do, how shall I say this? PB banana and bacon? No, people don't like that. I mean,
well, Jam Monster's minus the bacon. Jam Monster did like a peanut butter and banana. Wasn't that good? And I would say I'm a big proponent of Monster Labs. I thought they did a ton of great flavors.
I have to give a shout out to my friends at excuse me, good Lord. Five Ponds for this. I will say that Grandmaster will always be up there as far as a mouth to lung. They don't even make 24 anymore, I'm sure of it. Back when they had 24 milligram, 50-50, the whole 9 yards, you put that in your ridiculous arrow, arrow tank before the Nautilus. Like they had those little clear misers, Kanger did. Let's just say that made all the difference in the world. That was truly a step up in every way. This
Black Flag. I went through tons of Black Flag.
Black Flag, Castle Long, all those guys. But there were, and I mean, I still have to, give a certain amount of props to Halo for at least being consistently mediocre back then.
I'll tell you what, there's still shops. There's a lot of shops that still carry the entire line of Halo.
I wondered about that because I was a Halo fan.
I believe that my favorite flavor, Freedom Juice, was purchased and is now a product a tobacco company now owns the license to that, I believe. Other than that, it was Torque, and you had Tribeca. Tribeca was always like a kind of a mediocre version of what Freedom Juice was.
Mm-hmm.
Torque was good for certain things, and then you had, oh my God, what was that stuff? That Kringle's Curse It.
Yep.
I'll never forgive those
I
guys.
think, Kringle, actually, that was Kringle. God, it's a friend of mine. He's Victor Canestrano made it. Kringle. It
Kringle's
was
Curse, right?
yeah, it was a banana nut bread.
Oh no! This one was like the worst. Okay, it was basically the blow your tonsils out version of a a candy cane. That's what it was. It was supposed to be sort of Christmas.
No, you're right. I was trying to find this, and I'm on their website again, and they used to have a list of all their former flavors, and I was trying to find all, and Kringle's Curse was one of the ones that was one of the former flavors. Right now, they don't have a whole lot. They've only got basically 4 in their line. They've got Tribeca still, they've got
Torque.
Turkish. They've got one called Fusion, which is an unflavored tobacco. Is that an oxymoron? An unflavored tobacco? How does that even work?
It doesn't excite me.
And Sub-Zero is still in their lineup.
Sub-Zero. Okay, if you have Vapor's Tongue, half a glass, or a milliliter, vaping that stuff at low wattages, you'll be good to go. That stuff will clean your palate right up.
And your nostrils.
Yep. So here, yes,
You hope you
here
have
I will run
nostrils to
through.
talk about it.
I will run through the non-PMTA discontinued flavors from Halo. Menthol Ice, Menthol 5, which to me sounds almost like borderline cologne. Menthol 5, Midnight Tobacco, Prime 15, Spearmint, your favorite, Philip, Torque 56, Voodoo, Belgian Cocoa, Cafe Mocha. They were big on some of the chocolate flavors.
These are
They
new
were
but
pretty good.
old.
Those were
Yeah.
pretty good.
The
I
ones
liked
that
them.
were like the original. Turkish was there. It was awful. Tribeca was decent. Torque was more decent. The one that's not on there anymore was one that I believe the rights to that was purchased, a long time ago by. I do not know. It's. I was recently told who, and I really can't divulge this information because it was said in confidence. Let's just say that recipe was bought up by a tobacco company, and maybe they are just sitting on it.
Which was?
Freedom Juice.
Yeah, they listed as a discontinued flavor. It's right here. It was the next one on the list. It's discontinued. Yep. Pure first-rate Virginia tobacco. Freedom Juice exemplifies American-made quality e-liquid with ingredients you can trust and flavor that is second to none.
It was a lot closer to the original Boba's Bounty than I probably should say. At least it was close enough to where I was satisfied.
Yeah.
Vaping that when there were no Bobas to be found.
It's
that
true.
sort of thing.
Kringle's Curse is discontinued. Longhorn is discontinued, and Malibu Menthol. That's for you upper class people, you California pinkies up people. That's Malibu Menthol. Yeah. So, but I do remember quite vividly getting the sampler cans from Halo. I got the menthol pack and the tobacco one. I always struggle with tobaccos. I struggled mightily with them, and only primarily because I was a menthol smoker when I transitioned to vaping.
It's not like we ever forget that you're famous, man.
Me? I'm not famous.
Between you and John, you've never ever. I can't imagine there's such a thing as a sample that you were not provided at some point in time.
No, well, here, look.
And rightfully so.
Time to come honest. I have never really ever been the recipient of anything sent to me for sampling, sent to me for review, any of that. I never opined for it. I never asked for it. If anything, I bought things on my own because I was interested in them, or e-liquids because I was interested in trying them. And if I became anything, I became a conduit for people who I didn't want to see have to go through all of the different amalgams that I went to try to get to an answer to find something that kept them off of smoking and satisfied them. So I'm not saying I bought hundreds of thousands of devices for the sake of passing it on down the line, but I remember the journey that I went through, and not to make this a very long story, but I struggled a lot. You know what I mean? I started with the blues, like a lot of people did, because that was the first stuff that really was sort of like out in the general market. And then dealt with the ridicule of that. Like, I had it and I was using it, but that was a time period like where, like, if you were a dude and you walked into a bar when you could still smoke in bars at that time, and you had this thing in your hand that lit up blue on the end of the stick, you were kind of like chastised, for like, oh, that's for chicks, dude. What are you doing with that thing in your mouth?
I was not getting busy. Okay, I was not getting any for quite some time.
Yeah.
It was but I want to say something. God bless you for that answer, because frankly, I would be a really well-off man if it were not for my irrational need to, if there's a new product, especially, and Jeff, I'm sure you will remember the years in which the products were literally, you had 5 new mods every 2 weeks.
Yep.
They were coming out. And of those 5 mods, you had, maybe one was, okay. But you're looking at maybe 25 new mod kit setups, whatever, between Joy, whatever, that bloody company, whatever. There were tons of them, and for the most part, what was the captain? Who made that RTA almost killed me. I wanted to.
There was that iJoy? That was iJoy.
iJoy. They made one respectable mod, the captain. Every other mod they ever made was a disaster, and I'm here to tell you, it's just the sort of thing that you can't really describe. Yeah,
you've seen iJoy has a bunch of disposables out now.
Well, let's just say I don't know that wasn't I know their only option, but I think that I pretty much had to buy, and I've been lucky enough to know a few people and have a discount to where I could buy these things, but I bought them so I could let the world know in my own way what is actually worth spending your money on and what you need to stay the hell away from. And something that literally just changes its wattage, just touching it, or if you put the batteries in reverse polarity and it starts auto firing, yeah, that's something that people need to know about. There are a couple of Pioneer for You mods that did exactly that. On my range, I put a Cleto 120 on top of it, or original Cleto on top of it. It was the IPV 400, whatever. I put the batteries in, went to go stir a pot or something. Next thing I know, I hear sizzling, but it's certainly not hot enough for the pan to be sizzling. I turn around and this damn thing is just firing. And I thought to myself, holy shit, this is what they've been talking about on the YouTube. So I immediately just went like, and done. And that was something that I actually believe I might have had a hand in the company taking that sucker off the market, because it was a really, that was a terrible, terrible tragedy waiting to happen. So all that being said, here's to all the people who went out on their own dime and figured out what was worth owning in terms of devices that helped you not smoke cigarettes. Because trust me when I tell you, there's nothing that feels worse than buying something that's expensive that isn't satisfying or substituting for that really harmful habit that you're trying to stay away from in the first place. And
absolutely. Well, that leads me to a question I have for Jeff, just because I didn't invest, I didn't come up with the capital invest in a vape shop, but I mean, hearing your story last week, and the challenges that you experienced, in Pennsylvania, the challenges that you experienced in New York, led you to Tennessee. My question would be, what keeps you going? Where do you find the moxie to stay in this? Obviously for the right reasons, but I think it's commendable to see you continuing on in the face of such adversity you know, with all the laws and the bans and everything. What within you drives you to stay in this thing for the long haul?
Until about a year ago, it was because I felt like people were being wronged. There was because the government wanted you not to do it, because this is such a simple concept.
Yeah.
And there's so much against it. It's like, I guess, integrity, like, because you know you're right.
Yes.
I know, again, and even now, I know I'm right. I know that vaping is 99% less harmful than smoking. That's
Right.
fact.
Right,
Yes.
right.
It's likely even less harmful than that, but good on you. I know it's quantifying it. Recently, there was a study done that it put it into incidences of excess cancer, and I believe on the high level, essentially vaping and compared to people who never smoked at all, the incidences of you'll have to give me 1 second. I'll find this out. Anyway, on the high side of the spectrum, your chances were in, I don't know, 1/500th, and then, you know, 1 in over 500,000. Anyway, it was something like 500 something times less than smoking, the rate of cancers among people who vape. Statistically speaking, indiscernible from someone who doesn't smoke at all, someone who's sniffing aspartame. I mean,
Right.
truly, it's impossible at that you know, at that level of insignificance. How can you possibly say what's causing what? What I'm saying is, smoking, you have a very, very well-defined rate of cancer within a particular group, all sorts of different varieties, and that can be well observed, even, you know, in the most stringent of, you know, p-values or analysis of variance. But what I'm trying to say is, when compared, people tried to compare the incidence of cancer rates, you know, among people who vape relative to those who smoke, and it's just the disparity between the two is so great that it's just not even worth measuring. And that is just one thing. We have other things to worry about, like, you know, heart disease and things of that nature. But let's say cancer is pretty big. So let's just say when somebody, and I'll be happy to pass the study around, Jukka Kilivori, who's from Finland, wraps these things up much more tidily than I do. But anyhow, I get all excited when I talk about no cancer. What we have is a lot of really decent research that shows that vaping, and a lot of it is research that extrapolates, you know, 20 years, you know, and, you know, it's not, we don't know everything, but let's say when people say we've only had 20 years to observe what happens. Yeah, but those 20 years, if you compare it to, you know, how we didn't know about the terrible effects of smoking cigarettes, well, you know, that was in the 60s and the 70s. You know, we've kind of like come a long way in terms of preventative medical testing and things of that nature. So it's not really, I don't think it's fair to compare, you know, years and how long it takes to know if a product is or is not potentially hazardous. I think we have a very strong, there's a lot of very good research out there that shows that, well, I think it's important that we compare the harms of vaping to the harms of cigarette smoking, but it's just really not comparable. I'm going to shut up now.
Which is ironic that you even bring that up. Did you see the study that Columbus University put out, Columbus, Ohio?
Yeah, we talked about that a couple weeks ago.
Is it the one? Was it the review? Was it a meta-analysis, or was it a paper discussing how vaping, when discussing the effects of e-cigarettes, they shouldn't be comparing to combustible tobacco?
No, this was dual use with people that smoked and vaped were 8 times more likely to develop cancer. Very poorly written article.
Oh wait, this is the one where they didn't even bother to take histories of how long they had been smoking or
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Right.
It was this is the University of this is
University of Ohio,
Mi-
at Columbus or something.
Miami of Ohio, maybe.
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
oh, okay, it's the worst direct ever. I didn't even pay it any attention. Please, everyone who was exposed to that study, let it go. No one will ever, not even the worst, anti-tobacco zealots are going to be able to back that one up. It's terrible.
It was a very, very poorly written article. Yeah.
Even I can go then. Like, okay, they didn't.
Well, now that we're here.
oh no, it is Ohio State
University.
Okay, wow.
Well, let's talk about it. I want to get to the tweet, the infamous tweet. I definitely want to talk a little bit about that. But I did not read this particular article. So maybe we'll be educating a few people here. Feel free to jump in and comment, any of you guys, on this article. But it says people who both vape and smoke are 4 times more likely to develop lung cancer than people who just smoke, according to a new study published by the Ohio State University Comprehensive Cancer Center, Arthur G. James Cancer Hospital, and Richard J. Solove Research Institute. There's another one of those fancy acronyms. OSUCCCCCCC.314897273. I'm joking. At College of Public Health, these findings were consistent across gender and race. But haven't we read articles before, or at least talked about the subject of dual use? Obviously, it doesn't. People who still smoke and vape, there weren't a lot of changes in the trajectory of their health.
Can we go down to the methods? Is there any fine print where they discuss?
Yeah, let's get into it. Lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer. Related deaths worldwide, resulting in 1.8 million deaths in 2020 alone.
Yes, they're going to let us know how cancer sucks. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
Moving on.
The American Thoracic Society has found that about 87% of these cancers can be directly linked to persistent tobacco smoking. For this case control study, researchers analyzed cigarette smoking and use of electronic cigarettes, also known as vaping, in 4,975 people with lung cancer, compared to a control group of 27,294 people without cancer. All study subjects were from the same general geographic location and had the same distribution of age, gender, and race. Researchers found that
with lung cancer, and without cancer, all screened, and they've been absolutely given a clean bill of health. And let's just see, former smokers, I don't know. This is just ridiculous, man.
It was so poorly written.
No, this is just ridiculous. It's like saying you should be very scared, and we found nothing, but you should be scared. This is like, this is like worse than. I get really pissed off when I see like a really cringy article in Psychology Today. This is, frankly, I feel better about the Psychology Today thing.
So it said researchers found that vaping combined with cigarette smoking was 8 times. Here's Jeff's comment: was 8 times more common in people with lung cancer compared to the control group of people without lung cancer. I'm struggling with that one.
I have a question for our studio audience. If you can guess why that is a ridiculous statement on its own, why that statement simply has no merit at all. 1 in 8 dual users. Say that again. Excuse me. How many? Say what? Dual users were 8 times.
It says researchers found that vaping combined with cigarette smoking was 8 times more common in people with lung cancer compared to the control group of people without lung cancer.
They never said
I smoked.
They never said if the people had lung cancer prior to it.
Right.
Our friend Flo Fox and Ariel Celia are somewhere right now. Just they'll never stop throwing up. So that's an interesting thing to point out. So you're saying that it's the dual use and not maybe their history of smoking prior to any dual use. And let me see. Did you do a detailed history on their combustible tobacco use before it became dual use, or were they maybe huffing something on the grounds of Chernobyl or 3 Mile or anything? It's so bad. It's so bad. I mean, it's just, the average person who reads this, I can't fault them for coming away with a negative view of vaping and e-cigarettes. But here's the thing: it is just you're literally you don't really have to be a very well versed or high information meta scientist to figure these things out, and it's just ridiculous. James Heather's very, very, very well-known retraction junk science. He is, if there was a junk science police force, he would be captain. He's also one of the funniest fuckers on the interwebs. Pardon my Anglo-Saxon. 1 in 7 papers coming out right now onto his desk are fraud, are literally, we're not talking about, poor methods or p-value hacking or, terrible, data collection. We're talking about literally flawed, if not completely fraudulent claims.
I take it this wasn't a peer-reviewed document.
This is what comes out of PubPeer onto his desk. These are yet to be published, must need to be peer-reviewed studies that come across his desk, but they're there for everyone to see when they get on the PubPeer site. And James Heathers looks at these. Probably doesn't take him very long to see what is actually even worth looking at, and the rest of it's junk. There's never been more publications. There's never been more in the way of research papers out there. And of course, at the same time, let's just say, relative to the number of papers that are being published or at least ready to be peer reviewed, there have never been fewer credible studies coming across the desk. And it takes a lot to shock me when it comes to the number of junk studies that are being produced just on vaping, but this is in general. This is just across the board, which is concerning. And I think that people like him are absolutely worth following on Twitter, because this is a person who time and time again, he's not nice. He's downright cranky as hell a lot of the time, but he is the most, he is ruthless in his pursuit of excellent research. And he's the guy who created the account that will say "in mice" if anyone claims in a title this we found cancer blah 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 in early adolescence blah blah blah, and if it doesn't say right on under the title somewhere that this is a mouse study, his account of 100,000 followers will come back and say "in mice." So needless to say, he's an impressive person, and I think everyone who's listening should follow him, because you'll learn a lot. Plus, you'll get some really outstanding and maybe scary death metal recommendations while you're at it.
So it's kind of like 63% of the time it works every time.
What's that?
Kind of like 63% of the time it works every time.
Yeah.
Oh man, I would share a few of his threads with you, but he was among the team of very top-notch academic statisticians and analysts who tore that original Stanford COVID vaping study to pieces on Twitter in front of our eyes after CNN went ahead and put it on their front page. That was a dark day for research and vaping in general. But the fact that they decided to put that out there, and it was an online survey that this study was anonymous, and it was maybe the most egregiously flawed study to ever brandish the front page of any of the mainstream media outlets, and CNN just ran with it because it came from the Stanford Reach Lab.
Yeah, I was gonna
Fine.
say just because it's got a name attached to it. This, I mean, this article almost makes me feel as ridiculous as when, like, what was it? Rutgers University walked into Jay Hayes's shop wanting to know, they were going to do a study on vaping, and they didn't even know how the fucking devices worked. They had to ask him. He had a video on it. They were like students, like people from the lab were walking in, like, "Hey, can you show us how this thing?" How
Well, I
this
mean,
thing?
they could have been like, decent people and given him a CAT scan for his trouble. But the thing that I want people to know is that study with just absolutely zero in the way of credible data to show anything other than people answered a certain way online, and they just came out and said it because the same thing with smoking. As it turns out, current smoking negatively correlates with COVID. Current smokers were less likely to contract COVID. Outcomes vary. But
Yeah.
let's just say that there's Phil, the mega thread is almost 10,000 tweets long. And let's just say that it's hard to refute the evidence on that one. We
Well,
don't
but
know if
there's
it's
plenty that will.
well, I'm just saying we don't know it. We can't say
Right.
it's nicotine. We can't say it's part of the combustion. Who knows? Maybe it's people like have a drag or smoke. It's who knows. But the whole COVID vaping study, you'd be no less wrong to come out and say people who drink from plastic water bottles are at higher risk for COVID. I mean, it's just stupid. It's just, and let's just say that that was something that only Bonnie, Halper, and Felcher could get away with. And it's to undo that, it takes a long time. And I will forever be grateful to James Heathers and Nick Brown, two top-notch. I mean, these are the elite statistical magicians who will really look at everything, and they will tell you straight out, we don't like smoking, we don't like vaping, but this is some shit research.
Yeah.
And
Well, there's
anyway,
a lot of it to go around. It says, in addition, the data showed that the risk of developing lung cancer was 4 times higher among people who combined vaping and smoking compared to those who only smoked. Was this in the control group, or was this in the lung cancer? I already have a lung cancer group.
Right.
Our
can you
fi-
scroll down a little further?
I want to read the quote.
Oh, okay.
This bombastic let me get on the top of the mountain and beat my chest quote that says our findings provide the first evidence that smoking in combination with vaping significantly increases the risk of lung cancer compared to smoking alone. Why do I smell bullshit? Most people know that tobacco smoke contains cancer causing chemicals, but overall there is less knowledge about the chemicals that are inhaled through vape vapors. So of course, because you don't know what it is, certainly that causes the probabilities to go up. Researchers say it is critical that regulators consider these additional health exposures in their regulation of the tobacco product industry to further protect public health, particularly when it comes to inhaled flavorings and nicotine dose concentrations. And it's this kind of bullshit is exactly what ends up in the mouth of someone from an agency who gets to sit in front of Congress and spit their bullshit to get senators to see it as negatively as they possibly can, just from stuff like this. Whereas we don't get the equal time in front of Congress. I mean, it's great that you could see some shop owners or people telling their story to people in Congress and stuff like that, but you just never really see you never get to see any of the medical community that supports vaping get up there and share, at least have an argument against what these people are claiming.
I have a request.
Yes.
We must ignore this foolishness, because all we're doing is looking at something that has zero credibility, and my head hurts. Can we talk about something that's important that we can actually change?
Absolutely, right. We
Okay,
have
'cause these schmucks will get what's coming to them. Trust me when I tell you, the best thing that advocates for tobacco harm reduction products can do is look at it, laugh, move on.
Well, we can talk about something that we can change. Actually, maybe Jeff Berry can change. So a part of the story that is typically we're not talking about in Jeff's grander story is that you're a juice maker as well, right? You mixed your own, and I believe you have your own line, right?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Do you have samples?
Yes.
I enjoy a sample from time to time. No,
Depends.
if you've been in the game that long and you maybe have a news juice line coming, this is something that I can get behind it and get excited about, because it really is something that it requires. People talk about, you know, craft beers and the winemaker to a certain, and these are all, you know, all artistry. But I do think I think creating and refining the very best e-liquids that I've ever tasted, that took artistry as well.
So, well, the reason I say maybe is because, you know, it's about as, it's not exactly registered.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Man,
no,
I'm from
but
Canada. I'm not even a citizen.
well,
I'm an-
regardless of those components, though, I would like to get your take on the future of vaping. You know, as things could potentially become more constricted going down the road. You know, do you see people finding a benefit in DIY? I guess is the point.
My personal thoughts on it is, and I've had multiple conversations with many people much more important than me. I make the argument that I think that the Triton case is going to ruin the PMTAs.
Right.
I think that
it's not out of the realm of
I would like to
probability.
I would like to think that it's all going to get thrown out, and it's going to get a fresh restart. But that's really wishful thinking.
Right.
I've never actually thought that. The best I was ever hoping for is a certain amount of vindication that the science has always been more robust than our Food and Drug Administration and the minions. That, you know, if you ever read the Juul denial, it's the worst kind of that was pathetic. You know, think what you want of Juul, but to claim that we misplaced 400 pages of toxicology, when in fact it was right there. It's just terrible. All you have to do is read the last page where they said, well, we found a couple of pods that appeared to be leaking. So for the sake of public health, we had to issue a marketing denial order. And it's just, let's say if there was anyone who spent a few mil on their PMTA, it would have been them. And of course, we have a few illustrious politicians who decided to get online and talk about how they had conversations about how we need to give this an MDA. This is just, if we could stop and, and think about, okay, all these products are now equal. If they're under review, we don't hate one product, we don't love another. If a product has sufficient evidence to show that it meets whatever criteria they happen to be using that day, then that's good for everyone. The fact that the applications process has become a legal matter, it saddens me deeply every day. The fact that a court of law is having to decide whether or not these products should be allowed to help smokers live longer, better lives is just it is ridiculous that it's come to this. And I think that there are way too many lawyers out there celebrating their 15 minutes in the spotlight, and they could be a little more humble about what it is they're doing and why they're doing it. And let's just say hooting and hollering about your likelihood of winning or going to the Supreme Court and getting a picture, in front of, the highest, the justices of the Supreme Court. You know what I think that is? Pretty vacant. So keep your eye on the ball, boys.
Well, when I did decide to do that, because I stopped making liquid in 19 when it came to the HAPCT testing, I stopped altogether.
Yeah.
And seeing everybody else making juice again, I said, you know what? I know what I'm doing.
Right.
So I said, why not? I was like, what am I going to do? Throw me in jail? I've already decided it's the hill I'm going to die on. So
can I ask you, was it the fact that they were requiring a different submission for every nicotine level? Because that, I cannot imagine that harmful or potentially harmful tests would change at all between different nicotine concentrations. Am I correct in that assumption?
To be honest with you, it's been so long I can't even remember what they were asking me of. I still get the emails from the FDA.
For instance, if I have 3, 6, and 12 milligram nicotine concentrations in a single flavor of e-liquid,
Yeah.
and I do the requisite testing for potentially harmful chemicals on all 3 nicotine levels, as opposed to the single flavor all at once, am I going to see any difference in the levels that presented in those different nicotine concentrations?
Again, this is one of those things where
Significant difference.
significant? No, you wouldn't see any significant changes.
I mean, higher nicotine, likely higher concentration of PG. Who knows? The more nicotine, the less room you have for other things. But what I'm trying to say is, it couldn't possibly, the difference between 6 and 24 milligram, if they still make it, please let it come back into style. I'm interested to know, have you ever seen any evidence to suggest that there would be a difference, statistically speaking?
The only significant change, I think, would be in the submitter's pocketbook.
Yeah.
My God, for the love of user fees, man.
I thought that was the gimmick. I thought that all variations needed to be registered independently. So if you had, if you had 5 flavors, all had 3 to 4 different nick levels, you had to register each one individually.
That is
I registered 138 originally, and it ended up with, after the SKUs, and like 0, 3, 6, 9, 12. I was somewhere, I can't remember the exact number, but it was like 4,900 SKUs.
Yeah.
Per
independent SKUs.
Yeah, independent SKUs for him, given all the different flavors, nick levels.
Just one flavor and the different nick levels within that particular flavor.
Different nick levels, different size bottles with different nick levels. You had to submit them all.
You've got to be kidding me. If you have the same exact product in a 120 and 60, you have to submit a different application, including independent testing?
Each SKU had its own application and testing.
Right.
There's got to be a way to make everything the same damn SKU, isn't there?
Yeah.
In 2018, it wasn't.
I did not know that, Jeff. That is romper room sandbox kitty stuff.
So say like that's right here, like the okay.
Yeah.
0 would be a test. 3 would be a test. 6 would be a test. Then if you submitted 2 bottles, 120, both of them would get tested. 0, 3, 6, just in this flavor. Then you would move on. If you submitted a 100 ml bottle, that had to get tested.
And variation on PG-VG ratios too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the rationale for that?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
I need to shut up, actually.
I never quite understood. Are they actually testing for the nick, or are they testing the flavors? Or because I'm not a mixer, but I would think that if I had something in a 60 mil bottle and had it in a 6 compared to a 24 in nick, I would want more flavor added. Is that not correct?
Some did, some did not. I mean, I did the concentration of flavoring, different flavorings, and then they'd want your information on, like, say you did cherry. So if you did 120 in a 6, they wanted the information of how much more cherry you put in a 24 milligram compared to like a 0 milligram.
So
you had to put all that information.
Did you guys ever have to, how do I say, did y'all ever figure out what they were actually testing for or looking for? I mean, obviously flavors and that kind of stuff, but were they looking for harms? Were they looking for, because everything that we have, my understanding is it's already okayed independently to be on the market, correct?
Well, there's some that were that were deemed, a little more harmful than others, like say
Right.
your ices and your menthols and stuff like that, or
Mhm.
you'd submit it anyways.
Okay.
Did they
Well,
actually detect nitrosamides in those or no? I'm sorry, that's
I
stupid.
didn't get that far. I didn't submit the HCPCTs.
But just on a relative, okay, on a continuum of risk scale, even the menthol or ice flavorings, the fact that those were comparably more likely to be harmful than the non-menthol variations, was it a difference that was significant at a p-value that was appropriate? I mean, that's just to say the slightest variation in the direction of possible harm, for that to be notable, leads me to the question, well, what are we comparing it to? And more importantly, what level of significance threshold were you testing? Because these are all things that, well, nobody talks about. You can say we found this was higher than this, but what are you comparing it to? And more importantly, is that difference, that heightened risk in a statistical sense, is that significant just on a scale of harmfulness? Because frankly, when you look at through the pages and pages of just god awful BS, you find a lot of these differences are so insignificant, they really don't register. They mean nothing. They literally mean nothing. They're mentioned for the sake of being mentioned. And let's just say we all know that ambulance, bad news sells. Alarmism has always been in fashion, but it's incredible. But
Can I? I'm going to answer Mallory's question here real quick.
Yeah.
Mallory, you are correct. They did, like, your submission did have to match the numbers that were on your bottle. So if it was like 10% flavoring, you did have the testing was to confirm that your flavoring was 10%. Your PG was 30%, everything else like that. Everything actually had to add up to 100%. And the variables, so forth. That was part of your submission, Jess.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarity there.
But here's the thing: when they did the oil builders had to file PMTAs. So
For coils.
yes, because that was why you had to stop building coils in stores. Because if you built a coil, you had to submit a coil, and it had to be the same coil, had to read the same ohm, same resistance every single time. So therefore, if it differed even 1/10, it was a new product, and you must submit that too. So therefore, in a store, if you built a coil, that's why they were illegal, because it was not submitted to the PMTAs and it was not filed. It was different. So therefore, being not filed, it was an illegal product.
so to clarify, if you're walking around with a spool of Canthol to whatever gauge, you're good to go. As soon as you wrap that up in a configuration that looks like it might, carry cotton, well, you got some explaining to do.
Yes.
What a stupid time to be alive. I do really want to mention something. So not only were they insisting on separate applications for separate sizes of the same e-liquid that couldn't possibly be any different from, you submit for the 60 milliliter 3, 6, 12 milligram, then you also have to submit completely different, albeit the same test for 3, 6, and 12 and 120.
In the beginning, I think they may have changed. I don't know. They may have changed that as time went on, because obviously the rules changed as we went along.
Right.
Yeah, they certainly did.
And then given moment, right?
Wow. Thanks, Jeff. There's some things that maybe I didn't know, and maybe I just didn't want to acknowledge.
But that just seems completely outlandish. I mean, how can a standard, I mean, unless you put it on a machine that, you know, is making that coil almost exactly the same each and every time. How could a regular coil builder maintain consistency for every coil that guy wrapped? I mean, you cut the leg a little extra too long. You know what I mean? You like your specs have to be dead on. So how else do you accomplish that unless on a machine?
Where did all the coil builders go?
Yeah, you just don't see much of them anymore. Yeah, I mean they're all pretty much underground is probably the best way to see. Like it's, and then anything else mainstream market's probably just machine.
But could you understand? I mean, it boggles my mind to think that if they're going to be that hard on a coil or juice or any of this, but yet that's basically telling a beer company you can only have so many, you know, bubbles that come up out of a beer.
Well, no, and two things with a beer company. One is the recipes are exact every single time.
Well, yeah.
So
they have different alcohol contents between you know, Miller Lite, Miller Ultra, and of course there's the you know,
it's, you know, these big companies that it's exact amount goes into, you know, so much water, so much hops. I mean, everything's measured exactly. It's brewed exactly. The product comes out exactly the same every single time. That is true. Right. Now, temperature and storage and everything else will vary, but that's no longer the manufacturer's responsibility.
So that's where that's where they were going with that, was this is a manufacturer's deal with the coil.
How they did it, why the PMTAs and what they were trying to accomplish is very rudimentary. They tried to simplify it like cigarette manufacturers. Cigarette manufacturers use certain tobaccos. So much tobacco, nicotine is in that tobacco. So much goes in each individual cigarette. The paper is made a certain way. It's rolled a certain way in a certain company. Every cigarette is the same. Right. 20 cigarettes go in a pack. The wrapping, the paper, the ink, everything is exactly the same every single time. Right. That's what they tried to do with vaping.
So is that why I don't see any Trues or Vantage on the market anymore, because of that special filtration system?
I couldn't tell you.
The Camel Crushes, for example, the ones with the little, oh, by the way, that's how everybody will beat the menthol ban, by ordering, let me see, 1,000 menthol beads for $1 online. Those, for example, I'm just curious, would you speculate that those required some sort of special application or no?
Absolutely.
They did. So for the first time in maybe a long time, there was a new kind of cigarette that came out that actually cost a tobacco company money to get through the application process. Yeah. Well, I hope. Well, that must have stung. I guess what I'm asking you is, have you seen? Well, I applaud you for enduring as much as you have, because you sound like a very well-adjusted person considering all you've been through. I mean that.
Like I said, it's the hill I decided to die on. So, and I actually, I'm not going to name any names, but I have reached out to multiple people that have filed PMTAs, and pretty in unison basically said, "Don't bother."
Right. Just because of the mountain. Yeah. Well, and then we also know that a vast majority of those PMTAs are probably the products that we would be more inclined to invest in, were the ones that kind of got their MDOs and everything else pretty quickly. So I mean, you know, they were getting rejected faster than you can say the word Anbesol. But I guess my thought process on this is, you know, it makes me wonder why the fervent advocates against vaping, who would like to sort of treated as sort of a one size fits all kind of bucket, right? I feel like people, who have the power to really, regulate this, whether it be states or federal government. But I would think if they had any inkling of the information that was flowing in to the FDA with regard to the PMTAs, would, if you're going to say, well, everything is basically a jewel, it's all 50 milligram. My ears would have perked up a little bit had I seen all the submission applications that were coming in to the FDA. Like, okay, well, hold on. Why is there a 0? Why is there a 3? Why is there a 6? Why is there a 12? Why is there an 18? I thought this was all supposed to be kind of like 50 milligram, hook kids indefinitely, keep them up, get them jacked up on Nick all day long, when really the kids were just chasing a buzz for the most part. They're putting 10 joules in a styrofoam cup and, trying to get as high as possible. But, if you had any sense of inquiry, you'd be like, there's a reason why there's different levels. There's a reason why, because I think they just see it as this forever addiction, I think one of the things that gets missed is they don't understand the nuance of vaping, and that people actually do use vaping for the purpose to cessate from cigarette smoking. That's the primary goal, right? They've tried everything else. This didn't work. The NRTs didn't work. The hypnosis didn't work. The medications didn't work. It all led them right back to smoking.
Well, you've heard, and I'm sure you've heard that the youth vaping is down, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it's down. Yeah, it's extremely down, and we've talked about that. Yeah, with the Nick pouches, is that right?
That was the stuff that made me. I literally did throw up in my mouth several times on my way back from Vegas because, well, several 12 milligram nicotine pouches, that exact one over the span. You understand? I didn't know. I was never in a situation where it was too strong or too much nicotine. I smoked a lot more than anyone I've ever met. That 12, is that the pineapple peach, the 12 mil, that is the culprit. Exactly.
This I threw up like 3 times trying to use these.
You don't understand. I had. Oh my Lord! I was about to pass out, but I couldn't let Michael, my stepson, know anything about what was happening. So, yeah, let's just say 12 milligram, a couple of those. I guess an hour for 3.5 hours. No, I don't recommend it, particularly that brand. Zins are decidedly less potent, but that one, and yeah, the higher the nicotine content, do you find that the flavor also tends to be less appealing?
I hate them all.
You hate them all.
All the pouches.
Man, you are so lucky to have such a clear view of things.
I've actually never tried them. Now I did, it didn't kind of dawn on me that they could be beneficial. Like I used to travel for work a little bit more. I'm like, those probably could have been potentially a bit of I wouldn't call it a lifesaver, but at least a panacea for a long flight. Cause I wasn't taking like 2-hour puddle jumps, a couple states away. I was flying internationally, and that can be a little rough. I've actually never tried them, but to your point, Jeff, I mean, and I think we all recognize that is that, I feel personally that vaping for kids was primarily just another trendy fad thing that got super popular because it was a bit of a forbidden fruit. Not to mention you throw into the ring the fact that it had nicotine in it, and they could augment it and bastardize it in such a way that they could really kind of like, who gives a shit about whether or not it's peach vanilla, that made it a little bit more pleasant, but ultimately they were kind of going for the buzz. So if you speak to that premise as the kids eventually move on, all things get boring after a while. All things become what was once cool is not cool. Now, I don't think eating Tide Pods was ever cool from start to fucking finish. But my point is that vaping,
they put Downy in it, and it was all, it's downhill from there, really. But
I get it. But I guess my point is they moved on.
Yeah, and you'll have to forgive me again. My being out of town, I've just received 3 phone calls from my kids, so
quite all right.
Oh,
Family is priority, and we completely
Right.
understand that. And
Well,
as
it's,
always, you're
it's
welcome.
better.
You're welcome back anytime to join the
Thank you
conversation.
for joining us, Jeff.
Love having
Are
you
you
on the
on
show.
Facebook Messenger? I want to share a study with you that I think will be useful in your day-to-day conversations with people who are just unfamiliar with tobacco harm reduction. Are you on Facebook Messenger?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook.
Perfect.
So
I'll send you a link. It's
Well,
just about nicotine misperception and how much that stands to cost us 20 years
Well,
down the road.
so all right, guys, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks,
Thank
Jeff.
you, Jeff.
Maybe a next show or two.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank
There's always
you.
space.
You guys have a good night.
All right, take care,
You
Jeff.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, so that brings us to a pivotal point in the show. 4 entered, 3 remain. We need to continue forward.
I just looked in
We
our
still have
group
a
and
question
John
to
is
talk about.
talking. Where is John? Is he still like?
Well, I
upset?
figured this was a great opportunity to catch everybody up on the whereabouts of old John Truncali. So as everyone will remember, in episode 1, volume 1, John Truncali did not end up oversleeping his alarm. He was subject to what he believed was a internet outage on his premise.
Man, the Fed's got him. didn't they?
We have received a 5G update from good old John, stating that in fact it wasn't an internet outage at his house. He has a faulty router. His router is down, and you know how that process works. They don't have a tech that can run one out to you in the middle of the night. Basically, you got to wait 3 or 4 days to get a
Man,
replacement.
it's always the technical geniuses that end up with like a bum router. They don't check that. They're like, oh, wrong. Like, oh God, man, it wasn't plugged in.
Well, right. So I mean, what you could have done was maybe run to your next door neighbor and knocked on his door and asked him if you could connect to his internet to see if maybe that it was, or like maybe like us, being that I'm part of an HOA, we have a community Facebook page, and we converse about things, and people post all the time. Hey, is your internet out? And then, all of us chime in, nope, not mine, working totally fine.
See, we have the AI Spectrum Assistant for that crap. I do not want to be on
Exactly.
any neighborhood community site, the group where they're like, did you see that fall leaf just, whiz by my, video doorbell? I mean, these are things that I'm sorry, I can't care about that.
I hate to tell you,
We
it's
don't
not that
want
it's
those.
not that exciting, Philip.
I have to fix computers every day for free because people just don't want to learn how to defragment a hard drive or learn how to choose which programs automatically start when you boot up.
No. Ours is good. Ours is good. It's mostly helpful information. But before I forget, we still have a question or a tweet.
Yes, we do. We have a big old fat tweet that was put up on Facebook, not by Phillip Kirschberg, but
on Facebook.
No, I'm sorry, on X. Sorry, not Facebook. Not on Facebook. I'm sure it probably found its way to Facebook. Matter of fact, Matthew Salter commented on it and posted on it. So quite a few people.
Is there a post that Matthew Salter hasn't had a fucking comment for?
But I think it opens up, a very interesting discussion, right? So, and I'm pretty sure, and I don't think anyone is clueless in the chat here, people that watch the show, that there was a tweet that came out from Donald Trump on his efforts with regard to saving vaping. So, it raises some questions. We're talking about politicians here, right? So, you have to either try to read between the lines, or you have to forget your critical thinking skills that you ever even had any. So you could either be blindly excited by that particular tweet, or you could have some questions about that tweet and whether or not the bulletproof nature of that statement is true. So there was an opinion piece that was written, and Philip, you did share the opinion piece in the chat, or at least a screenshot of the person that created the article. So I thought I'd pull that article up, talk a little bit about it. I think it's necessary. We definitely don't ever try to make this show political. Unfortunately, this show does tend to end up on the fringe of the political spectrum just because of legislation, bans,
I blame it on the guy who's in our Wednesday Night Live group, who I've never met and who I don't know. That guy, he his attitude stinks.
He's what?
He has
Oh,
a
that
bad
guy.
attitude.
Okay, okay,
Bad
that guy.
attitude.
Yeah, okay. I know who you're
No,
talking about.
there's a lot. I would like for you to continue, and I will shut up. I promise.
Yeah, no, it's no problem. I mean, I don't feel like I need to read the entire article. I think everyone is more than familiar with the tweet that went out over X. And then even Jeff questioned it backstage before we got on the show. He wanted to discuss it a little bit. He had questions about whether or not he felt as though that was a legitimate. Well, I don't want to say illegitimate because it came from an actual verified account. But he had questions.
Okay, forget it. Continue, please.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say it came from an actual verified account. So I dare I say that it wasn't a real tweet.
It was.
But with that said, was it a genuine tweet from the man himself, or did some creative aid put that together?
Are you asking?
Either way,
I'm asking anybody who wants to share an opinion on that. But let's just read the first two segments, and then we'll carry on the conversation. We got time to talk about it. So it says, let me just refresh a bit. So the name of the article is from a publication on Slate. It was written by Jacob Greer. The article title is "What Trump Gets Right About Key Harm Reduction Tool." He went on a Truth Social rant about how we save vaping. Democrats should be taking note. So, I try not to make any of this about Republicans versus Democrats, because as we've seen in the past, there has been bipartisan legislation that has been attempted to be passed. So we can't say it's uniquely or exclusively a one-sided issue. We tend to have negative advocacy on both sides of that fence. So there are a few sentences I'm more loath to speak than Donald Trump is right. And yes, this past Friday afternoon, I reluctantly had to acknowledge that Trump was at least somewhat on the correct side of one of my pet issues. The quote was as follows: "I saved flavor vaping in 2019, and it greatly helped people get off smoking," he posted on Truth Social. "I raised the age to 21, keeping it away from the kids. Kamala and Joe want everything banned. Killing small businesses all over the country. I'll save vaping again." So that was the content of the tweet. Now, I could immediately and certainly see a lot of people being energized or excited by that statement, because we opine quite heavily to try to find someone in the federal government, let alone the president of the United States, in our corner, so to speak. Someone who actually has seen the issue, potentially and hopefully have seen it for what it is, and then heard our cries, our "we vape, we vote." Here's the science; it's on our side. The truth is on our side. There's all this blather that is negative against us. You got people in your ear who may have ulterior motives or money flying at them to effectively attack this one thing. Subsequently, removing rights from people's ability to make informed choices about their health journey, if that involves vaping, using flavors and nicotine, and ultimately lots of small businesses, because small businesses are the vehicle, the funnel, the conduit to getting those products into the hands of people in the right way, to use them properly for the sake of quitting smoking. So maybe we're being a little unrealistic, but some would say Trump heard our cries and changed his tune, right? I mean, wasn't that really the crux of it? That it started with, everybody thinks
on
Barron,
his own platform, Truth Social. Does that tweet sound worded in a way that does that scream Donald Trump's tone of discourse? No caps, punctuation marks in the right place.
I don't think
I'm
so.
asking you if you think that someone might have had an interest in persuading him to remember that he could perhaps grift on that, because it doesn't seem like anyone's questioning why he would put this out there. And I love that he put it out there, but I also think you have to ask, what does he stand to gain from this? And does he actually know much of anything about tobacco harm reduction, vaping, other than he is a very, very impulsive man. And I'm grateful that that led to the meeting at the White House. But I also know that someone, maybe someone specific, met with him and more or less authored that tweet. And he is perhaps not at all interested in the tobacco harm reduction discussion in the community, or even remembers what he did in 2019. So that is possible.
Right. Well, I'm just saying that, I think we live in a world where, where a lot of people are willing to forego the idea of really looking deeper into a particular issue, and would much rather react to something that just seems to appease their I don't want to say narrative, but the thing that they care about most. So like if every politician were to, speak loudly about climate change. I'm just using, general examples of things, and that was something that mattered to you, and then somebody said, and that one particular politician said, I'm all behind climate change, laws and going to a renewable energy format. I mean, they say it, quite often. My point. Let me finish my point. I think my point is that do they really mean what they're saying? Because we see people flip flop all the time, and I'm not saying Trump flip flopped here. To me, this caught me completely off guard, because it felt to me as though this issue had been intrinsically buried in the minutia
like it came out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like why all of a sudden? I mean, if you're looking at the complete demographic of people who vape, I mean, the number isn't. I mean, is the number enough to sway an election?
It's 20.1 million.
Yeah.
20.1 million. That's a lot of people.
I am always looking for new and interesting ways to make people Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, whatever. Right. Hey, let's all get together and have a salad party. I am always interested in making them aware of this issue in a way that is appropriate to the moment, in a way that is, I'm working on not speaking at them and speaking in a manner that just goes way over their head, because as people who have been in advocacy in this particular niche advocacy area for so long, we just don't understand how little the average person on the street knows about what we're talking about. Right. So we need to speak to them with empathy. We need to ask them questions. We need to listen to their answers. I think that there's a lot about what people are getting excited about Donald Trump's tweet. And I have to say, I'm a little surprised by that, because if you look at that tweet, the day after he promised 2 years into his next term as president, he would slash everyone's utility bill by 50% or more. And then, of course, the power and gas company said no. The important thing is, if you look at a politician's track record of making good on promises, I would say that former President Trump does not have the most impressive record of keeping his he promises things. Whether or not he remembers what he promised, that's a toss-up. Does he make good on his promises when they suit his quest for relevance, survival? And frankly, that tweet,
that's any politician. It's not
no,
just Trump.
This is a very, very niche area. This only appeals, you said, of the people it appeals to, almost 90-something% of them are likely to vote on that issue. Mm-hmm. The greater the greater base, it's let's just say I believe Democrats. Look, I'm doing my best to make Democrats listen to what Jacob is saying. Jacob is not saying Donald Trump is right or his tweet is has merit or anything. He's saying listen to what's going on. You cannot afford to be cavalier or ignore any voter group, no matter what the issue, like or dislike.
Well, right.
It's time to show that you can be the party of the people and take a moment's interest and delve into the subject a bit deeper. And on that basis, this was a good thing for vaping. But I can't help but tell you that given what I know about the nature of the tweet, the timing of the tweet, and the person who tweeted it, I really can't. I really can't get invested in that.
Right. So that would bring up my next question, because I mean, with all due respect, I mean, you know, I completely and ultimately respect everybody's choice to go whichever direction they want to go when it comes to
Right.
electing the person that they believe would lead us the best. And I'm not going to comment any further than that on that particular element. But what do you think, between Michelle and Philip or anybody here, you know, in the chat? I see good old Nick Orlando in the house too. Where do you think this comes from? What constituted it? I mean, I just don't believe that, you know, even if you're I mean, there's so many issues a politician could comment on. I mean, you know, it's not always just about the biggest ones that we always hear, you know, about the economy or this or that are always the same, you know, kind of regurgitated talking points. You know, everybody, education, the economy, you know, all the basic sort of things. What motivated this tweet? Do you think
No.
was
An industry organization motivated this tweet?
But I
I'm
also
not
think
going to
that
say
now
anything
his
more than that.
kid, I think now his kid is, you know, he's in college.
Yeah.
And he's a freshman. If I'm not wrong, I believe he's a freshman this year in college. And I believe, you know, he was already caught. Well, we believe that his kid was caught, and that's what started this whole thing, right?
right?
So, you know, I think maybe he's got a lot of younger people. He's got, you know, different things on his mind now.
Right.
And I also believe that, you know, there was some people from our advocacy that somehow got to him. You know, you've got JD Vance. He's a young guy. You know, he came from a very difficult life growing up. You know that he's young enough to see that his friends are probably vaping,
Yeah.
and he's probably seen it. You know, I mean, he wasn't born in money. You know,
Okay.
so
Yeah. I mean,
that's what I kind of think.
yeah. I mean, all fair. I mean, but is this particular topic worthy enough to get both candidates' opinion on this particular element? I mean, if you're going to bring up an issue, right? I mean, typically, you know, most debates would go to that point. They want to argue a particular point, you know, whether
Right.
who was right, who was wrong. Of course, you know, in the end, both people are wrong in the eyes of the other, you know, in the eyes of the other. So, is there any justification if the other party decided to comment on this particular thing? Because I think the constituents on the other side might want to know the stance from the other side of the fence. I mean, whether or not this is genuine, whether or not it really meant anything, will it buy him more votes? Will it get more people to vote for him? I think quite potentially it could. I mean, and I'm not talking about people who may have been on the fence about where their vote was going to go. I think most people have already decided where their vote is going to go. I don't, and no one's changing anybody's mind, regardless of what they say. I mean, you know, that's just sort of been sort of a historical residual of all of this. But do you think that this justifies hearing what the other position should be on this, or no? Does it not matter?
You mean when you say that, does
the Kamala's position?
any excuse to ask Kamala's position on tobacco harm reduction is good enough for me. But I have to say this. I really believe, okay, on one, the fact that Donald Trump is actually the Republican nominee and once again likely to be in a close race for president of the United States, it astonishes me for one reason above all others. And this is, I am not a Kamala Harris fanboy, far from it. What I do believe is an orderly, functioning executive branch of government, from which all other branches, the number of appointments made by president. This is a man who is actually threatening to place, his best quote unquote MAGA friends in positions that they have zero qualifications for, and this is a man who is swearing revenge on his political, not just literally, not metaphorically, swearing to take revenge on his political rivals by name, violence. And JD Vance, I can appreciate what you're saying about his origins, but I think it says a lot about what he's willing to just forget about where he came from to be the vice president nominee, because he's saying some really hateful things right now. And frankly, he's continuing to say them to the actually to the potential harm of citizens of certain cities. I mean, one of the women who raised me, I was born in Canada. One of the women that raised me until I was 10 was born in Haiti, and she spoke 4 languages. The fact that this is something that he's admitted to making these things up, but they have very real consequences in the world. But what I'd like to get back to is, think about this. Donald Trump is someone that I was prepared to vote for at one point. And after he had the meeting with Greg and Tony, he said a lot of things he was going to do, and he did not follow up. As soon as the crowds, and that was a great rally, my God, we really did. Hey, we got the New York Times to say, what the hell are these idiots doing? That's progress. The point is, he lost an election in 2020. He lost it, no matter how you look at it. He spent the last 3 years and 10 months sowing doubt, just absolute fabrications about the validity of that election. People who are grifting off of whatever he might make from, people are grifting everyone around him. They're making movies featuring conspiracy theories about voting machines being tapped into by, the ghost of Khrushchev. It's ridiculous, and it's very dangerous. What I'm trying to tell you is the peaceful transition of power is maybe the ultimate expression of the rule of law in this country. Not only did that man not respect that ultimate rule of law, expression of the rule of law, very vocally made it known to his supporters that he wouldn't mind if Mike Pence was lynched. And he certainly, there's plenty of proof to show that he did not do anything once he knew about the ongoing riot at the Capitol. And I remember that day very well. On January, I remember everything. I was on Twitter.
There's a lot of people that agree with you, but I believe that there's a lot of people that don't agree with you on that. And I just don't want to hurt anybody.
Would you say, no, I'm not interested in hurting feelings, but I really need to.
Or swaying anybody, because that's not.
Do you believe that he was cheated out of the election in 2020?
What?
Do you believe that he was legitimately cheated out of the election?
Well, I mean, I think that's
yeah, that's not part of this show. Right?
I mean, that's not. I mean, that's the. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
He has not to this day made any effort to. People, you make you concede in elections. This is how our democracy has to work. There's so much to be said for how we have one party in power that party loses an election, the next one takes over. It peacefully transferred when he beat Hillary Clinton fair and square, and everybody, the most vehement, crazy leftist nut jobs you could think of were like, okay, we'll give him a chance for 10 seconds. Nobody tried to stop the vote. No one was ready to fight this for another 4 years. And not only that, but, make up all sorts of hateful, narratives that would incite his voter base, which I think it's a malicious thing to do. So I'm going to ask you this. Are you interested in having an executive branch that is held accountable and will, at the very least, be accountable for their, I look forward to yelling at whomever ends up in office. But I will say this. When I vote them out, I expect them to go.
Fair enough. I mean, and I mean, I think these are the kinds of conversations that could go on for for quite some time about right, wrong. And I'm not defending one person or the other in this particular case. I want to try to bring it back.
It's a very dangerous thing to have a candidate that has a laundry list of things that benefit him in his mind.
Okay.
That's all.
Completely understand, and I fully respect your feelings on the matter. I think what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to bring it back to what we were originally talking about, which is
I am sorry for everyone.
Because I don't want to turn the show into something that it's not about. The subject at hand was about something that was said about something that could be seen in our community as someone who is potentially on our side. Whether or not that sways an election or not, I don't really care about that. But we don't hear much about it in the federal government anymore. So was more inquisitive about where this particular thing may have come from, your opinion on whether or not you think it was genuine or not. And that could be just a simple yes or no answer. So with that said, I don't want to belabor, everything going into, an election period. But these are subjects that we don't hear much about. So with that said, does this appease anybody? Does anyone think that it means any sanctity for the future of vaping, small businesses, and things of that nature? Did he have enough impact that we should believe that this is a genuine emotion?
For me, I'll go first. I don't really care if he's genuine or not at this point. The thing to me is that it was brought up because nobody's been talking about it. And the more it's brought up, maybe we'll get an answer. Maybe we'll get something out of it. If he does it, great. If somebody else does it, great. If it brings more attention to it, more power to it. I don't care who says it, but as long as it gets brought up, that's so I think it was great because I'm going to hold them to it. I mean,
I mean, we have to hold people to accountability when it comes to what they say, right? And I mean, I think it's a major thing. But Mallory brings up some wonderful points here. I mean, the thing is that vaping has gone largely sort of ignored, as a world issue. I mean, we're talking about a momentous invention that did many things for many people in many different ways. Not only did it offer people an alternative out to walking away from smoking, I think it's relevant and it's tremendous in the sense of tobacco harm reduction, because so many of us have come from a place where we suffered with this for years. I mean, by our own volition, we chose to get started, but it somehow hooked us. And then when it was time to exit, you had, options. But then, this invention was created, which has been proven to be significantly safer than smoking and allows people an off ramp from smoking. And the innovation behind it is so tremendous that it's given everybody every possible variation to achieving that goal. Like if it was just one device with one purpose, with one thing, it may never have been as successful as it was if other people hadn't found it and tried to make it better. And so I think that it stands on its own merit that, you know, it's unfortunate that, you know, some things happened along the way that put us in the crosshairs. And now we basically fight for our existence. And where we don't get much feedback or we don't get much empathy is from the places that, you know, could potentially have some serious impact on making sure that it stays viable and available and legal. But it seems like we've just been doing nothing but working completely uphill the entire way. And so I think, you know, I'll close my commentary on the fact that we can question the tweet all we want and the genuine nature of it. But I do think that something like this could potentially mean that, you know, mean a vote that goes somewhere that may not have even gone.
No, I think Michelle makes a good point. Any mention of vaping in the presidential race, that's a good thing. The old saying, any publicity is, you know, negative or otherwise, that's good publicity. But I really want people to think about, let's just say, what promises do you think each candidate might keep? What promises are made, and what are you perhaps foregoing in terms of other things that you might hold dear in your life?
You bring up a very important point, because I don't think that any one person can sit there and specifically say that they are just absolutely a single issue voter, you know, in terms of that. I mean, there are people that will make that claim, but I think there's more things at stake that are behind that. So, you know, with that said, I think the thing that resonates the most is I don't think this is about one particular person, no matter who it is. It's got to go. It's going to have to go through other levels of government before it, you know, if anything is to be preserved. And but I think that's the hope that we're looking for, is that our issue is finally put on the table and we get an honest look at it. Whether or not we even get that, here's the other element of it, is that we've seen far too many times that something that we feel is very important to us, very important, it may not be so important to the person next door or the guy that you work with in the office next to you. He may not give a rat's ass about vaping. He has no dog in the fight. He's not a smoker, not a vapor. He might have opinions on it because of the gotcha headlines that he reads on Facebook or he sees on X or whatever. I mean, most people are swayed, you know, their opinion about vaping is swayed that way. You know, they don't understand the guy outside of the donut shop with his vape, you know, blowing big clouds and
I think you just answered your own question as to the relative legitimacy of his interest in helping the tobacco harm reduction community.
Right. And so I guess what I'm saying is that I think that alone is enough to get, you know, people to look a certain way, and you can judge it any way you want beyond that. But I'm just saying, but what I think we were looking for is to have someone take a look at it on its own merit. And unfortunately, vaping gets lumped in and judged and ruled upon in these larger bills that, you know, kind of shove it to the bottom and, you know, and become a bargaining chip in a greater game. And I think that's unfair, because I mean, if I could have my druthers, the thing that I would wish for is that they would pass a fucking law that says whatever issue you want to bring to the table and make a law. I did, and I no shame in my game on that one.
Feel much better now.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but with that said, they should pass a law that says when you want to bring something to the table and pass a law, whether somebody is in favor of it or somebody is not in favor of it, let's make it just that issue and vote on it. I mean, maybe not as much. Nothing, hardly anything gets accomplished anyway. But what I'm saying is that it's just a shame that something that is important to us and important to millions of other people and potentially millions more gets no look, right? It's just, it's kids and it's bad and we need to stop it. And, you know, that's the end of the story. Like no one wants to really dig into the details.
Right.
And I want
Well,
everyone to know,
that's-
Michelle, everyone, I really do respect your opinion on this issue and your decision to evaluate a candidate and vote the way that you see fit. I respect that without exception.
Right.
I think it's important that we see Jacob's article for what it is. Jacob is very, very good at writing the tough, hard truth pieces like this one. And he will not. His opinion about Trump is quite unvarnished. He's not about to mince words on that, but he does point out that Trump did have an audience on vaping, and I think it's important that we use this opportunity to not rally behind Trump. You can do that if you want, but use this as an opportunity to ask the important question of the Harris-Walz administration. Say, well, how do you feel about this issue? And more importantly, have you thought about it at all?
Right.
Because
Well,
I do think that this is something that I don't see Donald Trump taking this seriously. And we've made a lot of progress with the latest CDC numbers on youth vaping, et cetera. We have a lot, I would say, more to work with in the coming months in the new whatever administration. With the people that we have absolutely been at war with for the last 4 or 8 years. And trust me when I say that we really didn't make that much progress under Trump at all. It was actually just knee-jerk this, knee-jerk that. We're finally making proper, well-earned progress. And I always think of Ethan Nadelman. Ethan Nadelman talks about this from the perspective of marijuana legalization. He speaks about the decades that it took to even get a marijuana legalization in the conversation on a ballot somewhere. And his view is this is an incredibly important topic and a subject that more people should be talking about. But the truth of it is time is what will make this subject relevant.
well, right. And that's the point I'm trying to make is that I feel like it's time that that the subject was made visible again. I feel
Yeah,
like we kind of got swept under the rug. And so no matter who wants to go public and have the influence to make a comment on it, I mean, we can get Michelle, you or I can spend our entire day on X making commentary in defense of the things that we feel strongly about.
She's gotten pretty good.
No, I'm not taking away from the intelligence behind it, the meaningfulness behind it, the sincerity behind it, and the positive commentary. But our audiences will never ultimately probably reach the same people or the masses of people that could potentially help to keep the ball rolling a little bit. And so what I would say is that when the time comes that we move into the next administration, I would hope that either candidate would somehow find room in their world to make it an issue. That's all I'm really saying. Whether you could take away all the other nuance of that person, and I'm not saying positive or negative on either side. All I'm saying is it's worthy of being a subject that should be honestly discussed and talked about. And I just feel like we don't get a fair shake in the greater conversation.
And that's why I'm so excited about it. It's getting actually talked about. And I don't care which one brought it up. It makes no difference to me. The whole thing for me is that it's getting talked about. And, if Kamala wants to, hopefully she does want to, and she'll say something. And then both sides will be talking about it. And maybe it will actually, with 20 million people's lives on the line, plus, because we have another, 34 million or something like that are currently smoking here in the United States. I think that's the right number. I could be wrong.
34 point something.
Yes, something. So,
Close.
you know, I mean, that's a lot of people that are Americans that could be dying if this goes away. So I really don't care which
Mallory shared the
administration does
stats.
it. Yeah, I don't care which administration brings it up. I'm just happy it's being brought up. And that's all I'm saying. You vote the way you want to vote. That's none of my business, you know, and I'm not going to sway or try and sway anybody. You know, it's just however you want to vote is your vote. And that's something personal to you. And nobody should have a right to say anything about that, period. My thing is vaping, and I'm just really glad that it's getting out there, you know, that people are actually talking about it.
Yep.
So I'm happy about it. One way or the other, it's being talked about.
Well, then we'll end
And
on that.
it is good to see Jacob write a new piece. You have to be
Yes, it
honest.
is.
He's a good writer. He
Always.
is.
So we'll end it on that note, because what do we do every week? We talk about it, right? And that's
Right.
what we're going to continue to do. So we'll reel it back in next week. Hopefully Jeff can come back to the table and somehow defeat his personal challenges with batteries and his kids calling him and all that stuff, and have a further conversation with him. Hopefully,
He
with
must
any
be
luck.
busy.
Yes. Well, yeah, he's a business owner. So, I mean, you know,
Right.
you got to tend the farm, as they say.
What
So-
is Jeff's last name? I apologize. There are 3 Jeffs that I'm.
His
Mm.
last name is Barry.
Barry, thank God. Okay, so it is Jeff Barry. All
Jeff
right,
Barry. Yeah,
I've met him.
Spelled like the berries, like, you know, Barry, Berry, Barry. So we'll have yes, we'll hopefully, with any luck, we'll have John back on the show with a brand new router, screaming at 1,000 megabits per second, no interruptions.
I swear, I thought you were going to say he was in Guantanamo or something.
Well, maybe that's where he is, Philip, and I'm just telling you one big fat lie. Or maybe he told me a lie, and he's really somewhere down in the Amazon jungle, chasing Taylor Swift around. I have no idea what really is going on with John. He lives a unique life. Yes, Steve, I hope to gosh he comes back with a brand new router, and we'll have everybody back.
I can send him a Google 3.
He could have gone to Best Buy and bought a new router. Yeah, you probably
that man can use all of the functioning equipment he can. He has spent more money on this. Let's just say that I'm happy to contribute. I'm not buying him anything, but I'm you know, this is lightly owned.
Exactly. That's fine. Partially used. Not
Google.
Not
Does
NIB,
nicotine
new
cause
inbox.
cancer?
Jason Vapes, you are absolutely 1,000,000%, 1,000,022,000,000% forgiven for missing the show. You know where we are every Wednesday, so you know, it's all you can always watch the show back. I think John posts it later, something like that. That's not my job. My job was to cover for John tonight, and I think we all
You did good. You did good.
We all,
Tim,
we
you're
found
a
our way.
master. You're a master. Michelle, thank you so much for being brave. And I'm just happy to be here. I feel like I've just been I don't know, tormented for weeks, but no, it's just been work.
Okay. Well,
but
we will torment you no more, Philip.
No. This is
just
great. This is like, you know, my playground.
This is your Shangri-La, right?
This is my pleasure.
But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody in the chat for joining the show tonight. Thank you for tolerating the tough discussions, but you know, nobody died. We're all okay. We're all gonna make it out on the other side okay. So love you guys. You guys are the best in the chat.
Can I close with a Skip Murrayism?
You may. Well, no, wait. You got to get a jar of peanut butter and a spoon, and then it's.
I don't have
legit.
either.
Okay.
All I want to say is thank you, everyone, and please be kind to each other.
Yes, exactly.
Cheers.
Love your neighbor.
Thank you.
Be kind to everybody.
Love y'all.
Thanks, everybody. Everybody, look in the camera and say goodnight.
Thank you all.
Night.
Hold on. Keep saying
Stay
goodnight
safe.
until I find the outro.
Good night.
Hold
Good
on.
night. Good night. Good night.
Hold on.
Stay
Phillip,
safe.
Spice.
There it is. Good night, everybody.
Bye.